Welcome to the Parenting with Impact podcast with your hosts Elaine Taylor-Klaus and Diane Dempster, co-creators of ImpactParents.com, an online community, award-winning blog, and service organization helping parents all over the world to raise complex kids become capable, independent adults.
Hi everyone, Elaine and Diane here, and we know that you want your complex kids to grow up to be happy and independent, and yet you're not always sure how or when to help with that.
In this podcast, we'll encourage you to collaborate with all kinds of complex kids and support them in navigating life and learning.
And we'll interview leading experts from around the world, as well as parents in our own community, talking about how training for parents actually helps these complex kids.
We'll talk about the issues we hear parents struggling with all the time and how a coach approach can support and empower your amazing young people.
We won't tell you what to do. We're going to help you figure out how. So let's move on to the next conversation. Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation in the Parenting with Impact podcast. We are excited to have a conversation for those of us on the Northern Hemisphere about summer.
It's so funny because you may be listening to this at a different time of year, but I can't tell you, the very beginning of summer officially for us, schools have been out for just about a week where I live. And I can't tell you how many clients last week we had these conversations about, oh my gosh, it's summer, and yay, it's summer, and oh crap, it's summer, and all of the above. And so we thought it would be fun to just get on and riff a little bit about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and how to keep some sanity for yourself as you go into this next few months.
And set realistic expectations, because I think at the end of the day, that's how we get sanity, right? Is by setting realistic expectations. When we set ourselves up for, we should be able to do it all. That's part of what makes us so stressed out.
And I'm laughing. So I'm going to tell on one of my clients. I'm not going to tell you which one of my clients it was, but she's got 3 kids. One of them came home with a big giant packet of stuff to do, getting ready for middle school. The other 2 are Montessori kids and had optional stuff. If you want to do this, you can. If you don't want to do this, you can't. And mom promptly went online and ordered some online stuff because, right? And it's so much of what we do. And I know that I remember this when my kids were younger, Elaine. I don't know if yours were as well, but you don't want your kids to get behind. You want your kids to be busy. You want your kids to not be laying around annoying you and sleeping all day or playing
sleeping until 2 o'clock every day,
right, sleeping until 2 o'clock or on the computer all day or asking you for 17 million things. And then the other side of it is you don't want to overschedule them, because then everybody is exhausted. And so I think we all try to figure out what to do.
And let's add to that since the world of COVID, there's this lack of recognition that we're still catching kids up. Even though the schools are keeping the metrics of expectations where they were, but we all know the kids lost a year and we're still all in that slow game of trying to figure out how to catch them up. And so we don't want to overpressure it, but we want to keep them engaged and we want to keep their brains active.
And so then so we're not going to leave out those of you who have teens and young adults. A lot of these kids are home from college, or they're in the middle of what am I going to do in the fall? And it's this sort of, everybody needs downtime. I think that's the piece of this is, I think that there's an older blog that we wrote, Elaine, a bit ago that was just enjoying the summer and relaxing into the summer. And I think that this is, so the punchline with this mom the other day was, I want to have fun this summer. I don't want to be overzealous and scheduled and everything else. It's this sort of, so we spent our session really talking about how do you want to balance it and what does it look like and how much scheduling do you want to do versus just downtime, and how to be, flexible structure. That's what we talk about all the time in Sanity School. And so I think that's the piece that how do we gonna go into this conversation? Do we inspire people? Do we commiserate with people? Hopefully
let's set the framework. Okay, so here's what we're saying. We all know we need downtime. We all want downtime. I think as parents, we often struggle with downtime because it feels, we get into this do mode, we should be productive. I'll tell a story on myself. I'll never forget walking into the family room and my 3 kids are sitting on the couch watching a show. And I remember walking in and looking around and looking for something for them to do, as if it just was not okay for them to be sitting and laughing together and watching a television show, which it was really my issue, not theirs, right? But I was so caught up in that do that I was losing sight of the three of them were together on the couch laughing and playing together in this kind of way, which is what I, in hindsight, was probably more important than whatever it was I was going to come in and bark orders for them to do. And so there is something here about I don't even want to use the word balance. I want to talk about the dance between, we talk a lot about the dance between doing and being from a parent perspective, but there's something here about that dance between doing and being in life, like making sure that we're getting the stuff done, but that we're also allowing time and space for relaxation and leisure. And that includes not just us, but our kids.
And so if we're going to, I think that's the piece of it. There's so many places I want to go with this. One is focus on what you want, not what you don't want. And where I want to start us based on what you just said is what's up with you around this, right? It's this sort of, where are you at? Before you even look at what's going on with your kids, look at what's going on with you. So many of us, if we're working part-time from home or trying to get stuff done at home, I remember really distinctly the first couple of years I was working from home and my kids were home for the summer, and it was just painful because I had to go to work every morning and they didn't. And it was like this sort of, it was hard to watch them being leisurely because I had to be working, and I was like, Arr. And I could have chosen to find a way to take vacation time and to be with my kids and do that sort of stuff. And I chose not to, but it's still, what I can recognize now is that it was hard for me to watch them relaxing when I didn't have the ability to do that myself.
Yes, it is. There's that, we're almost jealous of their space, right?
Yeah.
But here's the other thing that came up as I heard you say that, right? And that's that when we were kids growing up, there was a lot more downtime. And we've gotten into a world where we expect structured activity a lot, and our kids expect structured activity. But when you look at the research and the science, what they really need more of than they're getting is unstructured activity. The problem is that these devices have redirected that so that the unstructured time they have is very often spent on a device instead of being in the neighborhood or coming up with a fun game to play or whatever.
And that takes me back to flexible structure. And there's a whole conversation we could have around technology and that sort of thing. And you're going to all have to figure out kind of how you want to manage your kids through that piece of it. One of the things that I used to do with my kids during the summertime is that I'd set a goal for them to do something, but not have it be written in stone. So every day, I'm trying to remember what the categories were. You had to do something creative. You had to do something kind. You had to do something connected, so with another person. You had to do something physical, so you're getting like physical activity. And I can't remember the fifth one. Did I say helpful already? Kind and helpful.
Kind. You said kind.
Yeah, but helpful, right? And so they had this list of kind of roughly the kinds of things that they would need to do. But in that, they could cook dinner. They could learn a new song on the piano. They could go for a run. They could do, there's this flexibility in how they accomplish it. And I also didn't say you need to spend 30 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's like that sort of thing. So if they spent 5 minutes doing something, it was a great conversation to have and say, I only spent 5 minutes exercising today. How did that feel? And do you want to try to do more tomorrow? Or does that feel like the right amount for you? It's like it moves you into a collaborative conversation about what they're learning rather than the rigor of, okay, you must do this and this.
And not just what they're learning, but let's pull back even the step before that, because it's right on target. And the step before that is what you're talking about. What you did was you helped them begin to become intentional about how they were spending their time.
Oh, wait, I just remember what the fifth one was. It was something educational, right? Oh, wait. Yeah. So you have to try to learn something every day.
But all of those things, I mean, it's a brilliant structure, right? It's a flexible structure and a really clear structure. And it's all about, you were guiding them to be intentional about themselves, their time, and how they wanted to be with their time, because this is their time.
And this is we're in the long game, parents, right? It's just sort of, yes, we want to get through the summer. Yes, we want to avoid squabbles. Yes, we want our kids to have balance in their day-to-day life. But ultimately, what you're teaching your kids to do is, what do you do with your time when you have downtime? True story on Diane. Diane's home alone in the house for 2 weeks. And I'm like, what do I want to do with my time? I don't have any kind of other person obligations. And I'm like, I sometimes struggle with that, because I tend to be like, okay, what do you want to do? Right? Instead of, what do I want to do? And so part of this is teaching our kids life skills that you just described, which is, how do I deal with unstructured time? Do I like unstructured time? What do I want to do with my time, instead of falling into the computer or falling into the thing that I have to do? Again, it's a life skill, I think.
It's a huge life skill. And I will tell you, and part of this, I think, is my ADD. And part of it is my helper characteristics, right? I'm a Enneagram 2 helper. Is figuring out what I want is probably one of the hardest things for me to do in my life. It's really hard. And this goes all the way back. I remember the first time somebody took my first child when they were an infant and said, here, go take the afternoon for yourself. And I remember walking around crying. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. So what's becoming clear here, back to your client, is, so if we want to reduce summer stress, for us as parents, maybe the first step is to figure out what we want for ourselves this summer, so we can make sure to blend that in, to create the space for it. I remember one summer when I really wanted to clean out my basement. That was like my thing. And the kids wanted to go to the pool or whatever. It's like, but, and I had to find the way to make it work. So first, it set the intention for what we want for ourselves. Maybe first put the oxygen mask on first.
Oh, wow. Surprise.
Concept. And this is a radical idea for a lot of us, to let other things unfold around it, but to start with us instead of ending it, fitting us in.
And that may be hard for a lot of us. The exercise I ended up doing with this client was, imagine that it's August 1st, and this family happened to start school back around August 1st or 2nd, the very beginning of August. And I said, what do you want to tell me in our first session in August about how your summer was? What was it like? Visualize the future. And so I want to have had a great time reconnecting as a family. And I want to have felt like my kids were keeping up in school, but not stressed out by what it was. And I want to make sure that my kids had things that they were doing that were fun for them. And I had some time to myself. And I mean, it's like this sort of create that, just again, that container is the word I want to use for what are the kinds of things you want to have happen during this summer. Ask about yourself first and not just about your kids, to make sure you leave room for that. And then let the other stuff, I love that what you said, is let the other stuff fall into place once you've got those big rocks nailed down.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then let's come back and apply this to ADHD, anxiety, autism, etc. Hi, it's Elaine. And if you like this podcast, you'll love our coach approach. Whether you're a parent looking for support or a professional supporting families, we invite you to download a free guide with 12 key coaching tools at impactparents.com/gift. You can begin using a coach approach to help kids become more independent or improve all of your conversations at work and at home. That's impactparents.com/gift.
So what's different when you have a kid with ADHD or anxiety, or you have ADHD or anxiety, Elaine?
Yeah. So that's the question. Where we left off was, start the summer by setting intention for yourself about what's important to you, finding those things and identifying it in advance, so that you're not fitting it in the last minute, but you're making sure that you're on the plate. And then I would offer that when you've got kids with ADHD in particular and anxiety, oftentimes these are kids who don't think ahead. They don't plan forward. And so there is a real value to bringing them into that conversation, to each of them. What do you want for your summer? Like, to do that same exercise, looking back at the end of the summer, what do you want to have, look back on and feel good about? And it may be particular friends, or it may be time with grandparents, or and some of them may start with some outlandish things about trips they want to take or whatever, but humor that process. if you give kids a chance to say what's important to me, they actually tend to be better connected to that than we are.
Yeah.
And so they'll be able to say to you, well, sometime socializing with my friends on social media or digitally is important to them. Or it might be time, whether it's thrifting for teenagers or going to the pool for younger kids, whatever it is, letting them get clear on what they want is actually teaching them executive function skills, because that's planning. And dreaming is part of planning. Once you get the dream out, then you can begin to bring it down and say, what part can we do and what can't, and what the priorities are and what percentages and all of that.
Well,
but you
and
can
just
actually
to,
use it as an executive function activity.
Well, and I think the thing that I would just caution is a dream is not always a plan. And a lot of times, the minute our kids are dreaming about something, the planner in us goes, pounce. Let me plan that. Let me make that happen. And but we said at the beginning of the summer, we wanted to, it's like this sort of, so resist the pounce that often comes once the dreaming starts happening.
Well, and actually let them be part of the process of planning it.
Yeah.
Right. To Diane's point, don't pounce. You don't have to make it happen. Back to what you were saying, this is a collaborative invitation, right?
And I think the other side of this is, so I'm speaking for those of us who are not neurospicy, who live with neurospicy humans, go back to your original conversation about setting realistic expectations. Just the reminder, I'm thinking about summer homework. So it's a plan. We always do this. It's when do you want to do your summer work? I want to do a little bit every week so that I don't have it all pile up at the end of the summer. That it may not be a realistic expectation for them to even do that, even after they say that they want to do that, right? And it's this sort of having a dream doesn't necessarily mean that it can happen. These kids are still struggling with executive function. So they may need your help, or they may need a regroup, or they may need redirection.
And as I'm thinking about it, you can start off with some dreaming and what do you want for the summer, and then leave it and come back to it. You don't have to land it all in a single conversation, right? You take the beginning, it may even be the first few days or a week, to say what's important for us this summer, what's important for you, for me, for us as a family, and give yourselves time to be in the process, because they may change their mind a little bit, and that's okay, right? Let them learn about being in the process. We often talk about being in the process of problem solving. Well, problem solving is really planning. And so this is about being in the process of creating what they do want instead of solving a problem, which is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's much more motivation inherent in that. That's why I love to travel with my kids. When they were younger, especially, we'd get to a place and kind of look and say, okay, what are all the things happening? And then they were part of figuring out what we were going to actually do, because they were motivated by that. And so the same can be true for summer.
And then the other reminder is just that they may want to do it differently than you would, right? It's a sort of, they may want to not do any summer work until 2 days before the school starts again. And we may want them to do it differently. And so that's going to be a challenge, because a lot of these kids have that now, not now thing going on. And I want to be out of school mode until I have to be back in school mode. So again, it goes back to that sort of, how do we hold it as loosely as we can and help them to be as successful as they want to be.
And I want to take a stand for making sure they have at least some time in the summer that's off school.
Yeah.
Where they get to turn their brains off from that. And they get to think about what they want, what they care about, what they like, who they play with, what they're interested in, and not always be trying to fulfill adults' expectations about their learning.
And you deserve that break too, right?
Right?
No question. Okay, yeah. So
wrap it up here. What do we got?
Whether you're listening to this at the beginning of the summer, the middle of the summer, no time at all, we've encouraged flexible structure. We've encouraged thinking about the future, what you want, what your kids want, collaboration, all kinds of things.
Setting, executive function, building executive function skills by planning fun stuff, and the motivation that ties into that. And probably more important than all of that, we are really inviting you to slow down enough to put yourself on the list at the top of the list and to start by asking yourself what you want, what's important to you for the summer, and to create some spaces for you to make that happen. And then let everything else fill in around it so that you're not just trying to grasp little moments for yourself while everybody else comes first. Give yourself a space to at least choose a couple of things for yourself that's important to you for the summer.
Ooh, maybe that's their homework. Now that we're gonna close off the call today, let's ask them to say, what's one thing you want to do for yourself this summer, this weekend, whatever time frame you're looking at, to put yourself back on the list.
Yeah. And if you don't know, that's okay. Maybe it's having a conversation with a friend or a partner about brainstorming what is it that you do or want. If that feels like it's been a long time since you've had you on your list, and I can really relate to that feeling.
Yep.
Maybe it starts with a conversation about what would I like? What would feel nourishing for me? And I think our invitation to you as we wrap this conversation is we invite you for this summer and in the future to create opportunities for yourself and your family to nourish yourselves by reducing the stress, reducing everybody else's expectations, and really slowing down and figuring out what's important to you and what you want. And then getting into the process of navigating that with ease and flow.
Ooh, ease and flow.
Ease and flow.
Thanks everybody for what you do for yourself and your kids. At the end of the day, you make the difference.
Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For the essentials of Elaine and Diane's coach approach to parenting, download a free tip sheet at impactparents.com/podcast.
Behavior therapy training for parents is actually recommended as a first-line treatment for complex kids. For information about Sanity School, our training program for parents or teachers, which has helped thousands of families around the globe, visit impactparents.com/sanityschool.